Good evening and welcome to tonight's Undaunted, bringing to the news on 12 stories. I am Oyin Okbala. Let's begin. Ambassador Henry Fossung stands as a prominent voice in the unfolding narrative of resistance and identity in southern Cameroons, a nation long shaped by historical grievances and a persistent sense of marginalization, rooted in a unique colonial legacy and cultural identity. The people of southern Cameroons have for decades expressed concerns over political exclusion, economic neglect, and the erosion of their legal and educational systems. These tensions have intensified within the context of the Ambazonia War, where calls for equity, recognition, and self-determination continues to define the present struggle. Within this landscape, Ambassador Henry Fossung's engagement reflects a broader movement aimed at confronting systemic inequalities while advocating for justice and meaningful dialogue. His voice resonates with many who seek not only to highlight the realities of marginalization, but also to chart a pathway towards dignity, inclusion, and lasting peace. As the war endures, the role of leaders like Forsung shows the urgency of addressing the root causes of discontent and remaining a future built on fairness and natural respect. All these and more we will delve on tonight's Undaunted, but first, let's get the prime headlines. Tonight on Undaunted, we'll take a look at tensions in Bamenda as security forces abduction of over 40 in Cordon and search operation. Also tonight, Ntanche neighborhood cries out for help as road becomes impassable. Tonight will still be on the incident in southern Cameroons as it shows concerns over security force misconduct. Sadly, a fallen hero. Tonight, Undaunted will be honoring Ambassador Henry Forsung, who is a pioneer of the southern Cameroon struggle. On the African scene, deadly explosions at Burundi military arsenal kills 13, injures dozens in Burundi. Also on the global scene, US-Iran explore ceasefire deal tied to Strait of Hormuz reopening. Now let's get the news in full briefings. Security forces from the Cameroonian government have launched a large-scale cordon and search operation in Ntanche, a neighborhood in Bamenda, leading to the arrest of more than 14 individuals, most of them youths and students, according to local reports. The operation began early Wednesday morning with armed police units moving through residential areas, forcing entry into homes and carrying out extensive in-house searches. Residents described the climate of fear and uncertainty as families were caught off guard by the sudden sweep, with many alleging that those detained were taken without clear explanation. Authorities have not publicly clarified the objective of the operation or provided detail on the identities of those arrested, further fueling anxiety among locals and residents who remain uncertain about the fate of their relatives. The incident outstood the mountain grievances in southern Cameroon, where communities identifying with them have long complained of heavy-handed security measures, arbitrary arrest, and systemic marginalization. For many residents, such operations have become a recurring reality, often disrupting daily life, education, and economic activities. Students in particular are said to be among the most affected, with reports suggesting that some were detained from their homes or on their way to school, which exacerbates fear among families already grappling with years of instability. Human rights observers have repeatedly raised concerns about the humanitarian impact of the war in what they call Anglophone area, pointing to a pattern of raid, displacement, and limited access to basic services. The latest operation in Bamenda is likely to intensify these concerns as communities call for greater transparency, accountability, and respect for civilian rights. As the situation continues to unfold, residents remain on edge, with many hoping for clarity on the purpose of the operation and the condition of those detained. The broader crisis, however, shows little sign of easing, leaving civilians to bear the brunt of a protracted and deeply rooted war. A deeply rooted war. The people have been suffering. Barrister Mbeseha, welcome to tonight's Undaunted.
Thank you for having me.
All right, your voice is quite low. I want to be sure that is as loud as we should be. All right. I hope you're doing very well tonight.
I'm okay. I thought I shouted the voice. Thank you for having me.
Barrister, as usual, we are bringing all of the untold stories that others wouldn't report here on Undaunted. First report here, extremely sad. We can see video of people marching out in numbers, probably trying to ensure that their voices are heard, for over 40 people that were arrested for no just cause. This is not the first time, it's not the second time. As far as we know, is a reoccurring event, and as such, the people are obviously tired, even when we know that they do not have all of the reasons to be on the street. But we can see from the few images that we were able to get that they went to the streets to make sure that their voices are heard, to make sure that their friends, their brothers, their sisters who may have been part of those arrested are released. Part of this conversation that scares me a bit tonight is the fact that school children, some were also arrested. It's just a random search and arrest issue. About 40 persons so far. How sad could this even get?
Well, I wonder if it will get sadder than what it has been before. Arresting school children or 40 people here is not news. That's what they've been forever and ever. And so the problem is not the arresting people. The problem is how people have just been submitting themselves to illegalities. Can they ever stop it? No. Because they are not doing anything. If the arrest, the adoption they call Kale is a source of, they adopt you for a reason or for no reason. You come and pay to get yourself free. If you took your son or your daughter into that brigade, whatever thing you call it there, either you go and pay or you keep the child. And God not willing, that child there where a little girl of 11, they will rape that child for the pleasure of having sex. And so that's what they have been doing forever. And I've said it a million times before. Kale are illegal. But in Cameroon, they are a source of income. What will you complain to? I've also said here that in Cameroon, the idea of sending policemen or gendarmes to the road for business, you have to bribe your boss to send you to the road so he can extort money and bring his own share. And so that is what it is. If this Bamenda now, you might say a few things about it. They are going to accentuate it. Most importantly in the next few weeks, because the Pope is coming there. And that's a way to bring insecurity. But what we say, imagine, is that if the Pope himself from the wherever sitting could see what is going on with human beings, He, the leader of morality, what would he say? If he saw it only once in 5 years, in 10 years, you can imagine how people have been living under those conditions for the past 40, 50 years. No, what they do is not new. I've said. They do it for purpose of getting fortune out of it. Because why are they not releasing those people? Why are they being held for in the first place? What's their crime? Maybe, just maybe, they didn't carry a national identity card on you. Is that a crime? No, of course, not a crime. But using that crime to adopt you, that's a crime for which they went to Nigeria and caught people in another hotel. One of the crimes was that they didn't carry national identity cards. And they brought them to their courts, trying to get them lives. And so it is unfortunate that we find ourselves where we are. It is very, very regrettable. We don't know how God will get us out of this debacle. Poor children, poor inhabitants, do what you can. Just pray. Because nothing can change them. Going to the streets, it has no meaning. You ask yourselves, why are they going to the streets? Where are all these people, all these different levels of security in Bamenda, of administration in Bamenda? The governor, the super mayors, the mayors, the sous-prefects and the prefects, in their scores and dozens. What are they doing there? They are cautioning this thing because they get something out of it. If you don't get any immediate money from the people who are doing the act, you get promotion from your only. For having assisted in subduing the Ambazonians, for having assisted in subduing the rebels, the separatists, the Cordon. Even if it means killing them, that's a good job for the Yaoundé. And again, I insist, these people here in Bamenda or anywhere else performing these things enjoy presidential appointments appointed by decree. The decree is the decree of the head of state. So he bears responsibility for sending these criminals down to torture people, to rape women, to extort from people. That is where the primary source of the crime came from. If we cannot change, which we would not be able to change it, the best option we have agreed in advance is to get out of it. But you're not really safe. You get out of it fighting. Fight for what you can until you get what it. And I reminded once more again by what Ben Muna said before he died. This fight is for you. Fight to lead serves. Your parents who made errors or who made no errors are dead and gone. They are not coming back to the earth to fight for you. And that's one of the reasons why we fight. We fight until we get out of this nonsense once and forever. Over to you.
All right, thank you so much, Barrister. Of course, they will keep fighting. For them to step out to the streets is also a sign of fight. So we keep on hoping that all of it will get better. And of course, we head into the road situation. The residents of Ntanche neighborhood, still in Bamenda, have issued an urgent appeal to the Bamenda City Council, that's Bamenda Council and the Bonds Construction Company, to undertake immediate repair works on the Sad Road, the road connecting the quarter to the Bamenda-Babaju Highway. The road from the Porkmeat Junction to the quarter has become impassable due to the heavy rainfall experienced at the onset of the rainy season. Residents want that if prompt action is not taken, the neighborhood will be isolated from the main road, as vehicular and bike traffic have already become severely restricted. They urge Bonds Construction Company to consider repairing the steep hill leading to the area as part of its corporate social responsibility initiative. Furthermore, the Bamenda City Council and Bamenda Council are called upon to collaborate in alleviating the residents' plight. In addition to the road infrastructure challenges, the neighborhood has been without electricity for over 2 weeks. Oh well. Our major concern was on the roads, as you can see, highly impassable. The rains just started for all we know. And of course, we really had to chip in that there is no power, which is of course a basic amenity that the people lack. They lack they lack everything. So Barrister, aside from manipulation, aside from arrests, unwarranted arrests, they have power issue, they have poor road networks issue. Everything is a problem. And I'm sure that at this point you're really tired of talking, but you just have to keep on emphasizing the fact that Amazonians need to be free.
Well, again, let me reframe in a way. Are they having poor network road infrastructure? No. They have non-existent roads. Actually, non-existent roads. We look at the stretch getting to Babaju. Do you call that a road? And I said it before, a number of times before. It's part of the stretch of the Trans-African Highway that goes across to a cock. That's the on portion of the road. Big vehicles, trucks to apply that road. Is that a road? Well, sitting just here last week that we were talking about something 7 miles from Bamenda town. Stretch of road going to Santa. Accidents minutes apart. That's what you call a road? No. But again, you go down to town, you see the mayors and other people scrambling to fix the streets in Bamenda town. And what are they doing? They put up bridges, several bridges that are swept away by the rain. And to do what they say is to make a image of their country when the Pope comes. Yeah, but the Pope will come. Most of the people coming with the Pope will fly in. They'll fly in plane, there are not many. But I guarantee you, 90% of the people coming from Yaoundé to flood the streets of Bamenda will pass through that road. They will pass through that social road that you and me have seen. And then, of course, going to receive the Pope. And to lie to themselves that Bamenda has good roads. Bamenda is not commercial avenue alone. They are not commercial avenue alone. Roads are supposed to be centered around one house. They're supposed to facilitate communication, movement left and right and out. If they're not there, they have failed. And they have failed woefully. And again as before. I would not have found that. But the equipment pulled the PWD industry there. Even they could not made the grade of the job. And what will you find there in the next few minutes or few days? They will bring some cement and concrete the road. Throughout the history of the world, we're concreting roads. They are not in Bamenda, they go to buy, you find them concrete. They dig it and put cement there to prevent drain from slipping in seconds. And the next couple of weeks, it is gone. The experience. They complain. There is a rainfall, a new in tropical Africa. Is a heavy rain in Bamenda. Who talk less of the whole of Cameroon? Of course not. Everybody knows that come April, the rainy season has. It has been like that for the life that we have lived because that's how that part of the world is. It's called Africa because we are within the tropics. And so you cannot blame the rain. The rain is just doing its job. You can yourself for not fitting your structures size of the rain, for not cutting gutters. How much does it cost to make a gutter there? Then you find something standing there, you call it a Burns company. It's supposed to be doing the construction. Go through the fine lines, you see who owns Burns company. Where money comes from. It's a group of gangsters, it's a group of thieves who want to have it where they did not sow. And so, do we expect anything better? No. If we expect anything, I expect more manufactured lies, more manufactured extortion. And I did that's Babaju, road going to Babaju. Mr. Nele Afik, the governor of the so-called Northwest, he's from somewhere up there in Bamenda. To go visit his people in his village, he passes through the and then they call it, he's driving to his town, he comes out. If he doesn't come out to check, it is because he has the most powerful vehicle on earth, which other people in his village have lots of vehicles. Almost nobody except him. And so, again, it's unfortunate where we find ourselves. It should never have been 60 years, 65 years into this. Before they came, we were still in the tropical area. The rain was still falling, but the roads were there. So what has changed? The only thing that has changed has been human beings who are realistic, who have just become fear of human beings to develop the place. And so it is unfortunate that we have this. It's very, very more unfortunate that it happened to be one of these people who lived. I can see what I saw. And told me, we are in the wrong place. We're in the wrong place until we get out of it.
So sad. Thank you so much, Barrister. I apologize. It's really not poor stretch of road. It's actually no road at all. I really apologize. All right, moving on to other reports tonight. Let's head into the Nkumajab, which is a routine traffic stop in the village of Nkumajab, all right, in southern Cameroon. It escalated into an altercation this week when a gendarme reportedly confiscated the man's motorcycle and demanded that the driver return with proper documentation, then proceeded to assault him during the confrontation. The victim, who was ordered to retrieve vehicle papers, sustained injuries in the encounter. As you can see in the video, you can see the encounter between the gendarme and the motorcyclist. Well, according to residents familiar with the incident, the driver-only offense was lacking the required document at the roadside checkpoint, a relatively common occurrence in that particular area. Instead of issuing a citation or issuing a warning or issuing a ticket, as the case may be, the gendarme seized the motorcycle and responded with physical force, drawing criticisms from community members. This episode has reignited complaints from residents in southern Cameroons that some security personnel engage in heavy-handed tactics that goes beyond lawful enforcement, contributing to an atmosphere of fear and resentment amongst ordinary citizens. Critics argue that the use of force over administrative matters like documentation checks reflects deeper frustrations with the behavior of some members of the security forces who are expected to protect and serve but are increasingly seen as part of the problem. Human rights observers and local leaders continue to call for improved training, accountability mechanisms, and clearer procedures to prevent abuse and ensure that interactions between security officers and the public are conducted with respect for rights and dignities. Alright, Barrister, of course you can see this particular incident, the case. We can as well say, oh, the motorcyclist would have been wrong, by not having his proper documentation. But imagine your security force, being involved in that kind of physical assault, physical combat. And, every other person, instead of trying to even come to the aid of any of them, they are all by the side watching. It just goes to show that the gendarmes themselves, they also lack they lack respect from the civilians. They lack respect, and as such, even the civilians who are wrong are not even in fear, because they know that these things can be sorted out. Give me a warning, give me a ticket, do some other things, but definitely not to want to beat me up on the road. I mean, that video, I wish we can see that clip again so that every other person can see that video, the video of the gendarme and the victim. You can see that altercation there. From the altercation, it leads back into the fight that we saw earlier. Barrister.
Well, I don't know what you want me to say about that. The problem is this. See, what happened between that guy and those gendarmes? It's not because he lacked papers. No, who told you that? That's a fabricated story. It is because he refused to give a bribe. Because he came there without paper, without anything, and was prepared to cough out the 500 francs, 2,000 francs, nobody will ask him anything. And it is law enforcement. To the best of my knowledge, there's no law enforcement school where they tell you to go and catch people physically and fight with them. Law enforcement, obedience of the law is not physical. It's the authority that matters. We wear that uniform, it commands authority. That's why they say a policeman has come. you're a corpse. Because you have that beret on your head, you have that uniform to show that you're official. You have that thing to lock people up, but you're not supposed to be locking everybody up because you only have one. How many people can you lock them out on the highway? They are just meant to demonstrate authority, not to give you a license to fight people. In a regular country, if we were in Ambazonia, that policeman or gendarme will be out of work in the next 48 hours. That's not part of enforcement. And you look at it there. Why are they doing this thing? You see the picture right there. They are doing this in the quartier. You find people's houses there. Who made that place an official checkpoint? Who made it? By what order? Did you imagine where vehicles pass? They can't sit at your door if they are passing through your door. And they sit there, it becomes a control point. And they take the money. If they are very kind, by the end of the day, somebody threw you a bottle of beer or 500 francs and walk away. That is the height of corruption. That is the height of incompetence, not law enforcement. And then how can you engage in fight with the civilian, a physical fight? Again, you go a series of things. There's nothing like citation there. There's nothing like going to court. I've said that a million times before. Throughout my life there, nobody was ever brought to court. Nobody was ever cited for riding a motorcycle or a car without papers. Nobody was ever brought to court for driving without a valid driver license. Do those things exist? They exist there. Are they committed every day? Yes, of course. But where do they end up? They end up with the gendarmes, with the police, with the BU, whoever. Everybody there is a law enforcement officer, even including someone they call him municipal police, who will pick a fight with everybody just because I'm not giving them a bribe. They are not supposed to do that. If you want to impound on a car or a motorcycle, anything which is driven on wheels, it's as simple as good morning. That thing is parked there, there's no way that guy will carry it off. You need to pay. Why is he fighting with him? Was the guy trying to retrieve his motorcycle by force? Certainly not, he could not. And you find, as you rightly said there, the population is watching. What do we expect these people to do? These are just poor civilians. That's a man who is trained and armed. He has guns on him. And experience has shown that they will shoot at everybody. They shoot at children. They are giving arms, not for anything, but to shoot people. We have the stories. They have killed children. Remember what happened in Mbeseha a few years back? A mother was taking her child to school, a daycare, I think. And because she would not stop, they shot the car and kill the child. Is there any form of law enforcement? Zero. Whatever happened to that man, I don't know. But I think that he was lynched. But that was not supposed to be enough. The guy who had sent him to go and stand on the road there, asking drivers, asking people to drop their children and or give money to them, should have been the first man to be sanctioned, to lose his job in the first place, before any other thing else. And so this is a structured form of corruption. This is a structured form of illegalities. Killing people without accountability, taking physical fights with civilians that they are supposed to protect. How far would they not go? What else do you expect them to do? They have done the worst that can ever be done. They have killed people and gone unpunished. They have wounded people and gone unpunished. They have destroyed people's property. Even that small motorcycle, they will burn it. And nobody will ask them questions. And so, again, it is unfortunate that we are finding this where we are. That's the most unfortunate thing that we ever had in our lives. To join a people who know no law, they claim to have gone to school. I don't know why there are guidelines in those training schools, call it a gendarmerie school, or the police school of today. Because the police school that is supposed to have trained all these policemen was started in 1962. That was the West Cameroon police, not Paul Biya's police. Not Hijos police. But the training they gave there to the policemen made it accountable. They didn't even carry guns, they carry whistles. Because when they blew the whistle, you the driver, whoever, you had to stop. That's order. You hear the whistle, the policeman, you stop. The policeman does not need to come and grab you physically. And so this is the jungle we will find ourselves. And as I've said a million times before, we have to get out of it. Dead or alive, we have to get out of it. But luckily we're still alive. We'll do our best until God helps us to get out of this terrible mess. Over to you.
All right. Of course, everyone will hopefully come out for life so that they can enjoy the Ambazonia of their dreams. On to a very sad report tonight, Barrister. Ambazonia has lost another hero. His name is Ambassador Henry Fossung, who stands tall in the living memory of the Southern Cameroon struggle as one of those early pillars whose conviction, courage, and quiet determination helped shape the foundation of a movement that would outlive him. He belonged to that generation of pioneers who carried the burden of a people's history at a time when the world paid little attention, yet the stakes for their communities were already painfully clear. His life was deeply tied to the case of Southern Cameroons, rooted in the long-standing grievances surrounding the 1961 reunification, the gradual erosion of the Anglophone identity, and the persistent feeling of marginalization under the administration in Yaoundé. For him and many of his contemporaries, this was never a distant political debate, but a lived reality that demanded courage and sacrifice. In the 1990s, when repression and uncertainty forced many activities into exile, Henry Forsung remained actively engaged within the diaspora networks that kept the struggle alive. The memories of gatherings such as the one in Boston, Massachusetts in 1997 reflects the urgency and tension of that period, when concerned Southern Cameroons met to understand unfolding events back home and to anticipate the actions of authorities against their people. These meetings were more than discussions. They were lifelines of a movement sustained by commitment, fear, hope, and an unbreakable sense of duty. Forsung was part of that inner circle of voices that helped organize, encourage, and connect activities and activists across borders, ensuring that the cause did not fade into silence. He ensured that the Ambazonian cause did not fall into silence. Those who knew him remember him as a man of principles, one who stood firmly for his people and gave his time, strength, and voice to a struggle that demanded everything but promised little in return. He carried himself with dignity of a statesman, not necessarily defined by official title alone, but by the respect he commanded among his peers and the trust placed in him by those who shared a vision of a free and recognized Southern Cameroons. It is in this light that even the president and the present leader, President Samuel Ikomesako, is remembered to have served under him, a reflection of the role Fossung played in mentoring, guiding, and shaping the leadership that followed. Now let's hear what he had to say about President Sako and the war in general.
I am Ambassador Henry Forsung, and I want to make a few things right. What the leader of our war, Samuel Sako Ekame, has explained this morning about referendum, I do agree with him, but I would want to make some records straight. We are a country recognized by the United Nations in a way because the International Court of Justice, ICJ, decided to keep our frontiers safe for us by the request and the writing I made in 1994. And there was a green tree agreement in our territory that the International Court of Justice requested Nigeria and La Republique to agree that they cannot in any way occupy our territory. Because they know that we did achieve the basic objective of the trusteeship system. We were a trusteeship territory, a child of the United Nations. I shall get time to expand on all this for you to know. We are two countries here. Unfortunately for us, even though they tried in all ways, people tried to push us into the arm of La Republique with all fraud. They have failed because La Republique has rejected us in quite a good number of times. I think the war that they brought on us is one of those rejections, and that makes the fifth rejection. The resolution 1608 of the United Nations is a non-starter. That's why I've been calling it a resolution that is null and void. Why? Because Great Britain did not allow our people to participate in it, knowing that we were going to accept to do only what was right. And then, of course, La République du Cameroon and France, their master, voted no against it. When you vote no against a law, that law cannot bind you if your no is accepted and is a principle in accepting or denying that resolution. I could elaborate if there be time. Secondly, this war is meant to do two things. Mr. Biya himself declared that they had tried to assimilate us and failed. It is because they failed to assimilate us by all intrigues and fraud that they decided to wage a war of genocide and annexation. You can see the way they are fighting it. Look at the way they kill our people in Bali. They poisoned them. Look at the way they destroy our villages. Look at the way they have killed us. Look at how they treat pregnant women. And they don't have any feeling for us at all. They have never had it. So therefore, the United Nations knows that we are a free people. Even if you take that resolution, you can see some of the examples of the acceptance that we are a free people. I will elaborate someday. And I think for today, it is enough to say that we are two nations before God and man. We have never had any legal sanction between us since that we started. That we should note. It is right, our brave boys and girls, our sons, great sons, and those making sure that they guide them and provide for them as Sako is doing. I dock my hat to all of you and continue to do what you're doing. No one will take what is ours away. You have decided you're using your bodies to take bullets from an enemy. Don't change it. You are winning every battle. God is with you. He will continue to be with us till Sako and his interim government guards us to Buya. Congratulations, Sako. Continue.
Right. So sadly there. But honorably, he was given award and recognized by the President Samuel Sako's administration. Now, to describe him as a fallen baobab is not an exaggeration, but a truth deeply felt. Like the great tree, he represented strength, endurance, and a source of wisdom for many. His passing, especially following the loss of other respected figures like Ma Mukom, leaves a void that words struggle to fill. Yet, even in death, his legacy remains woven in the ongoing stories of his people, a story of resistance, identity, and the enduring search for justice. As you have seen, he has played a vital role. There is something profoundly human in the memories he shared, the uncertainty of those years, the fear for loved ones, the hope of one day returning to Boya, and the painful reality that not all journeys reach their intended end. These are the quiet testimonies that, as we all know, history books often miss, but which define the true cost of a struggle. Ambassador Henry Fossung's name, for all we know, belongs to that history, not only in records but in the hearts of those who walked that path with him. Well, may he find eternal rest in the bosom of the Lord. May his contributions continue to inspire reflection, unity, and purpose, and may his name remain etched in the story of Southern Cameroon as one who stood, endured, and gave his all. Of course, we are saying, rest in peace, His Excellency. At this point, we are also announcing the death of Mafri Marcon, who was a strong pillar in this Amazonian journey as well. May their gentle souls rest in peace. Barrister Mbeseha, I'm very sure that you you know much more than we have tried to reel out here from the journey and personality of Ambassador Henry Fossung. I'm very sure that there are other remarkable diplomatic moves that he made for the southern Cameroons, and a whole lot of people may just be hearing about him for the first time today. And I'm sure that by the time you begin to reel out from your wealth of knowledge, people may go back to try to know more about him.
I'm sure people will try to know more, but I don't know where to start, because I think I know a little bit too more than any other person here would know. I've known Ambassador Henry Forsung when he was the grade 3 teacher in 1958. He was a primary school teacher. Are you getting me?
It's not so clear.
Are you getting me? Are you getting me now? Are you getting me?
Yes, I can hear you now.
I said, I think I know too much about Ambassador Fossung, that I could spend days, if not months, talking about it. I've known him from his childhood when he was a young man. In 1958, he was barely a grade 3 teacher teaching in a primary school. I knew him then. He used to come and sleep in our house because my uncle was his godson, and we were both teachers. And I was sailing without my own uncle, so we could boil water for him to wash himself. So I've known him from that. From that event right down to his political career. The last I did, we lived in Mbeseha together. He has his house in Mbeseha. We lived in Mbeseha. But it's more than a mountain of knowledge. He is actually more than that. Because this is a man who has lived everything. If there's enjoyment, he has lived it in Cameroon. If there's sacrifice, he has made it for the sake of this Amazonia. And so he has gone too far. But he had to die. Nobody killed him. He was in his 90s. When we live up to 90 years, unless we are Mr. Paul Biya, we think that we will die. So what interests us is, what did he leave behind? What shall we know him for? And I say he did everything. He was one of the first people, Cameroonians in general, not Ambazonians, but Cameroonians as a bloc, to represent Cameroon at the United Nations. He was an ambassador of Cameroon to the United Nations in the 60s. That was he came to Washington, D.C. He was an ambassador of Cameroon to Russia, even in the Cold War. So diplomacy is peak of it. Among his other ambassador posts, he worked in Liberia as ambassador. He worked in Bangui as ambassador. So from this one, he is a diplomat of the first order. It was unusual, very unusual for an ambassador to be named ambassador of the United Nations, but he held that office. So he knew what the United Nations is all about. He knew how he could navigate it. But back to Ambassador and the crisis that we have now. Ambassador Forsung, when he retired, he went back to Mbeseha. In the 1990s, when they were demonstrating down the streets, and when they opened to creating new parties, Ambassador Fossung created a political party known as the NDP, the National Democratic Party. Because he had the National Democratic Party, Paul Biya invited him and his party to the Grand Bar instead of the Sovereign National Conference. He went there. It is from that tripartite that held in 1991, I think, if I'm not mistaken, that gave rise to the constitution that they talked today of 1996. For those who were there, quote me wrong, he played the role. They are the ones who went to the tripartite and said, we could not make multipartyism without going back to the constitution, because we need a different constitution from the 1972 one that you have. And that forced Yaoundé to create what they call the Constitutional Drafting Committee, which Constitutional Drafting Committee, ambassadors were there. Those who were there included Mr. Dr. Professor Yangwe, late Sami Kontaila, the lawyer, not late, those were there. Samuel Munzu is still alive. And Benjamin Eto'o. These were four Anglophones in that committee. And so I'm trying to show how important he was. Fast forward, it is that drafting committee that gave rise to the SCNC, which they call AAC 1 and AAC 2, which became SCNC. It is a result of that constitutional drafting committee that the same collective one consult the Anglophones, ourselves, the four of them, the four English-speaking people there, Munzu, Elad, Anyangwe, and Benjamin Eto'e. Let us consult them whether what do we want to do. We want to return to a federation. That's the origin of AAC in Boya, 1993, April 2nd. And so that's where it came from. And then the AAC thing gave rise to chairmanship. The first chairman of AAC, which became SCNC, was Sam Kontang Elad, a lawyer, may so rest in peace. He too died. And it transitioned from Mr. Elad to Mr. Fossung. Ambassador Forsung retired. That's why he headed the SCNC and became the leader there. But above all, as ambassador, this man has invested. As ambassador, you have all of privileges. He built houses in Yaoundé. I know the houses. One of which was in Karafo Obile, big story building that was rented by the government, and other buildings. From the AAC 1 and 2, SCNC call it, all of us know the story of the mission back to New York, to UN, led by Poncha, Muna, and others. Mr. Forsung was part of that thing. Munzu can quote me wrong. When they conceived that mission to go back to the United Nations and tell the story of Amazonia, they had no money. It requires a lot of money. The SCNC did not have money. Ambassador Fossung sold his houses in Yaoundé to invest in that mission to go back to the United Nations. He did that. That's his personal money. And because he took those positions, supporting the SCNC, as things progressed in the early 2000s, he was forced to flee from Cameroon because he was adamant. He lived here in the United States almost 20 years, escaping from Cameroon, leaving the comfort of the best houses he had in Boya, some of the houses he had in Fontaine, that's where it comes from, the BLM, to come and live in exile until his death. What else do you expect of a man? What other sacrifice do you expect more than that? No, he was not just a politician. He was a library to the Amazonian cause. By virtue of his age, he had lived those events. By virtue of his education, he had read those things. I say he was at the United Nations physical as ambassador. So it's not new. It's not news. And so God has taken him away like they will take all of us. But he was a living history. He was a living champion. Maybe he did something wrong. That will be human. Because nobody expects a non-human being to live forever without making mistakes. But personally, I have not found his errors. But it might be, there must be somewhere. It's not possible. That's very, very possible. But this is a man. If you hear what he's saying there, talking to Dr. Sako as his eventual successor, the advice he gave him, that same advice will go to another one. He's not the first to die here. Remember another lawyer who died, Frederick Ebon, who was a lawyer of the Supreme Court in Yaoundé. He was the judge of that Supreme Court in Yaoundé there. And because of Amazonia, he was forced to flee. He died in Washington, D.C. more than 10 years after that. He was the first person as the leader of Amazonia, 1999, who declared the restoration of Amazonia 31st December 1999, because in his own vision, we could not go into the year 2000 be slaves anymore. The team drove him to Washington, D.C. He died here in exile. So Ambassador Forsung is just one, but it's one too many. It's one too high. He's not the man that we could have lost, but we've lost him. We've lost him through natural causes. Nobody killed him. But again, he has left behind a mountain of legacy, what each of us must emulate, especially those in leadership. He walked without looking for compensation. He sacrificed without looking back. He sacrificed his family. He sacrificed his property. He sacrificed his money and time without looking back. So too the new generation of leaders. Now that they are history, these guys are history. Can we emulate them? We must. We must serve without reserve. We must plead without anger. We must be prepared to do what it takes. Even if we fail, we know that we are put in the maximum. And this man put the maximum in this struggle. I don't know what else he could have done. This is a man with a big family. That he would leave all the property. If you go to Boya, I see the property that he has is as his residence. If you know Boya, as you enter the hospital junction, right, going to the general hospital, the house opposite is his house. Multiple stories. One of the best houses in Boya. But he was forced to leave those comfort, live in exile, perhaps in a rented apartment until he died. What else could you expect of him? Before he left Cameroon and fled, early 2000, the last time I saw him, I was in Cameroon with him, but I came here. I went to Cameroon in 2002, and I met him. He was only an SCNC meeting in the house, and I suddenly arrived. And he told me how the few days before, they had sent people from Yaoundé to come and kill him. That his life was very, very unsafe. Well, we pray that he should not die. But there was nothing he could do. His life was so in danger that he had to flee, leaving his wives, his children, all his property to exile. Well, he has died. If there's nothing we can do for him, that would be wonderful. But if there's nothing we can do for him right now, at least we can be able to emulate him, because he's a mountain of knowledge, he's a capital of knowledge, he's a capital of wealth in any form or shape, as far as Ambassador is concerned. And again, who of the ambassadors who rose to the level of ambassador at United Nations? Who rose to the level of being ambassador in Russia? Russia, ambassadorship is not everywhere. In Russia, at the time, there were only two places it could be. You're either in Washington, D.C., that was a superpower, or you're in Russia, you're in Moscow. Ambassadors don't just go to everywhere, don't just go to anywhere. They go to places of choice by the government because these areas are important. Again, I can speak for years and for months about Ambassador Fossung. I will not finish. So permit me to say goodbye and have a happy rest. Bye, Henry Forsung. Over to you.
Thank you so much. I already know for you to give that in-depth analysis of how far you've known him and how well you know him, it's obvious that you can talk about him from today until tomorrow and still have a lot to say. But as an ambassador, do you think that he placed Southern Cameroons at the right places he was supposed to place them based on the opportunities he had as an ambassador? Do you think he did quite enough for the voices of Southern Cameroons to be heard?
I think he did more than what many people can imagine. For example, let us just take from 1990, when the crisis really started. He started from an SCNC. He led this mission with his own money back to the United Nations. Members of that delegation included Dr. Munzu, who is today denouncing the very mission. But it is just because Dr. Munzu and others like him did not seem to see the foresight. If the United Nations did not act, they were reminded that the job they did was incomplete. And so, to say for somebody, we should have capitalized from there. Yes, if we went to United Nations, according to Dr. Munzu, and they say, look, well, we'll finish our job. It is for us to reflect on what they do next. It's not for us to deride the mission, like Dr. Munzu says. And he says funny things about it and says that they went there, tried to get the impression that nothing worked, and then they went to a shop and bought flags of the United Nations and come to Rubamongo to show it. No, it was not propaganda. That was a fact. They've been to New York, Dr. Munzu. If you go to New York, there's no place where they will give you United Nations flags free. You have to buy it. They are sold like any other flag. And so to think that that is the way to deride some action that was taken at the time is just wrong. We should have built from there. Today, he's dead. We have to build from what they did and then correct the errors if there are any. Re-strategize differently if it is possible. But he and others laid the foundation. Coincidentally, he is dead. He was a Boya resident. Panjoli Tumbe was in Boya. He too died in Boya. Panjoli Tumbe had his own party. What do you call his own party? They were all in Boya. They were all at the tripartite. They were all responsible for the constitution that was there. And so these men did what they could. I'm old, but if I have to survive, I have survived. I can only go back to him and say, look, Pali, to me, he said this. Let us build from there, correct the points, put the commas where they need, add the full stops where it is possible, rather than deride him. The initiative was the best. We cannot go blaming Foncha anymore, because Foncha, even though he didn't have money, Muna did not have money. Forsung looked for the money. They accompanied him back to the United Nations. That was a wonderful move. That the United Nations, whether they liked it or not. They saw Foncha that they seen physically in 1959 at the United Nations. They saw Muna, that he was there at the 1959-60. That Muna, who went back and became the vice president of Cameroon, who became the speaker and was thrown out, they came back with their 2 legs back to the United Nations to say, Papa, UN, you dealt us a bad blow. That was a big advantage. They took us to where they could. The world is changing. It is for us now to improve on what they did rather than castigate them for what they did not do. Over to you.
And from the reports this evening, Barrister, it is highly indicated that President Samuel Ikome Sako benefited a lot from the wealth of knowledge of, Pa Fossung, as we have seen. Do you think that the president is living in the full ability of someone who learned from a legend? Would you at this point say that President Sako learned well and probably exhibiting what he may have learned from the ambassador?
Well, I'm not competent to be the judge in that aspect, because I don't know what he learned from him, because their relationship was not through me. President Sako knew Ambassador Forsung in a different sector, through different circumstances. That was not there. But from the award that you get him, one would assume that he holds his advice to the bottom of it.
I can't hear you.
So you're not getting me? Are you still getting me?
It's not there. He said it.
What's going on? Are you getting me? Are you still getting me?
Sir, okay, I can hear you, but I didn't get the last things you said. Please, could you just repeat yourself? I
said that I could not be a judge. I said that I could not be a judge in those circumstances, because the way how Dr. Sako met with Ambassador Forsung, I have no idea. So they have a different relationship. But if you live with him, which I'm not a witness, you must have learned a lot from him. From Ambassador Forsung's own words, from which you have reproduced right here, it means they had a very close relationship. It means Ambassador Forsung had a lot of trust in him. And so that is what it is. And I was trying to say that from your own narration and what you have shown us here, if that decoration award was made by Dr. Sako as the president of Ambassador, one must assume that he had him at heart, that they're very, very close. Whether he takes his advice in full or not, I cannot be a witness, because I don't know the advice he gave him privately. I don't know the advice he gave him, if at all, on his dying bed. But they had a good working relation, at least as far as this course is concerned. And so we can only analyze what we know, not what we imagine. Over to you.
All right. Thank you so much, Barrister. I know. It's a sad one. We're not able to get the years he lived, and so I won't be able to say if it's a celebration of life or what it is. But I'm sure that when we are able to get the exact year or age he lived, we'll definitely bring it out. I don't know. Are you aware? Are you aware of how old he was before he died?
I can only imagine. He was by far older than me. I don't know when he was born. But I can tell you, I've told you right here, that as far back 1958, I knew he was really a teacher. And so I know people who were his age mates who died close to being 90. So I'm sure he could not be less than 90. But I cannot, for now, say that I know his age. But he was a very educated man from his youth. In 1957-58, that he was the headmaster of a primary school. He was already a trained teacher. He was a very big post in those early days. So he was well educated. And then, of course, educated people live long because at least they live well. From the functions that he performed, from the offices that he held, that would imply that he was living well. And therefore he lived well. If he could live 20 years in exile without his family, he had the strength to survive that difficulty. You know what I mean? Those of us who are here know it. If you can live in the United States here without your family at a certain age for 20 years or more, you must be a very resilient man. But for the idea of his age, we'll get those details from his family when they come out. Over to you.
All right, thank you so much, Barrister. You've given us an in-depth idea of what we should be expecting, and so for some persons, from what you've said, it could be a celebration of life. But at the end of the day, all we know is death is death. It's going to be painful to some persons because at the end of the day, he would have been a father, he would have been a grandfather, he would have been a brother, and of course uncle, and so we know how much pain that would be for some people. But until we get more information about Ambassador Henry Forsung, and until we have other news that will be coming in from the home front, before we let you go, Barrister, there will be a meeting on Saturday. There will be a meeting on Saturday. It will be a draft on Saturday. It's called the People's Town Hall, and ABC Networks 24 funding. Funding for media, funding for the diplomacy, funding for everything that gives voice to the Ambazonian struggle, everything that gives strength to the Ambazonian struggle. And when this starts, we know that a whole lot of persons are putting in so much resources to ensure that everything media, when it comes to the Ambazonian struggle, stands out. So we need your help to join the force, to call up on people to come out in mass on Saturday to join the People's Town Hall. Well, Barrister, is your call.
Well, I don't want to say it is coming late, better late than never, because we're not talking on ABC. It is coming up on ABC Network. Without money, we'll not be talking right here. There's just no way. I've said here many times before. There's no free lunch. These things are paid for. We pay for the equipment. We pay for the technology. We need money. And people like this, like Ambassador Forsung we're talking about, they are dead. But we need to do something symbolically to show that they were part of us. Those things will cost us money. Even to just buy the wreath will cost money. So we cannot survive in the modern world without money. Let us come that day and contribute twice, 3 times over, if it is possible. Just because Ambassador Forsung is dead, just because we are getting this message about him from ABC, that is the reason why we survive. Just because we are getting this education through these sources, we need it to be live. You sitting there, if you must pay a taxi to come and sit in the studio, you are not going to manufacture your own taxi, you are going to pay it to come there. If you have to use your phone, you pay the phone. So there's no free lunch. Let us not deceive ourselves. It's good to listen, but it's also good to chip the widow's mite into the basket. Over to you.
All right, thank you so much. Everything needs funding, and funding is the only way forward for the media in the southern Cameroons to be able to explore and do the needful. Thank you so much, Barrister. Hopefully, before the People's Town Hall on Saturday, the team would sit and have an in-depth discussion on some of the achievements of Ambassador Henry Forsung. But until then, I think I should allow you to, go take some rest. See you for the weekend.
Thank you very much.
Alright, when we return right after the break, we'll head into Africa where deadly explosions at Burundi military arsenal kills 13, injures dozens in Bujumbura. Burundi's army has confirmed that at least 13 civilians were killed and 57 others injured following a series of powerful explosions at a military ammunition. The military ammunition depot earlier this week, intensifying concerns over public safety in densely populated urban areas. The blast occurred late Tuesday night at the main arsenal of the Burundi's warfare located in Muzanga, a southern suburb of the capital. The facility sits in closely proximity to residential neighborhoods and near the where officers, trainers live and study. Authorities reported that in addition to the civilian casualties, 3 soldiers were among the injured. Though no military fatalities have been confirmed, emergency responders and security personnel were deployed to the scene shortly after the explosions, working through the night to evacuate residents and transport wounded to the nearby medical facilities. Witnesses described scenes of panic as multiple blasts ripped through the area, sending shockwaves across surrounding communities and forcing residents to flee their homes. Several buildings sustained damage with debris scattered across nearby streets. The incident has raised renewed scrutiny over the placement of military infrastructure within civilian areas, with local residents and observers questioning the risks posed by such facilities operating near homes, schools, training institutions. Officials have yet to determine the cause of the explosions and an investigation is currently on the way. Authorities say further updates will be provided as more information becomes available. The tragedy shows ongoing concerns about safety protocols and urban planning in conflict-sensitive areas and nations where military installations often coexist with growing civilian population. And when we return right after the break, we'll go over to the globe, where US, Iran, has explored ceasefire deal tied to Strait of Hormuz reopening. States and Iran are engaged in high-level discussions over a potential agreement that could significantly ease tensions in the Middle East, with a proposed framework centered on a ceasefire in exchange for reopening the strategically critical Strait of Hormuz. The waterway is a vital artery for global energy supplies, has faced disruptions amid ongoing instability, raising concerns about economic fallout and the risks of wider conflict. Reopening the strait would help stabilize oil markets and restore confidence in international shipping routes that carry a significant share of the world crude exports. The talks reflect mounting international pressure to de-escalate tensions and safeguard global trade follows as part of the broader diplomatic efforts. President Donald Trump has also held discussions with Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, underscoring Saudi Arabia's key role in regional security and energy dynamics. Saudi Arabia remains a central stakeholder in an agreement that could alter the balance of power in the Gulf, given its position as a leading oil producer and a major U.S. ally. While negotiations are ongoing and detail remains fluid, the discussions indicate a willingness on both sides to consider concessions aimed at reducing hostilities. Any potential agreement will require navigating deep-rooted political divisions, security concerns, and competing regional interests. Diplomatic channels remain active as global observers watch closely for signs of a breakthrough that could ease one of the world's most persistent geopolitical flashpoints. And with that report, we've come to the end of tonight's Undaunted. But before we go, let's take a look at a recap. Tonight on Undaunted, we told you that in Bamenda there is high tension as security forces abduct over 40 in Cordon and search operation. While in Ntanche in Bamenda as well, neighborhood cries out for help as road becomes impassable. We went into some parts of the southern Cameroons where incident shows so much insecurity and security forces taking advantage of the people as well. Also on Tonight Undaunted, we took a look at a fallen hero and we honor the life of Ambassador Fossung. While on the African scene, we told you that deadly explosion is currently happening at Burundi military arsenal while it has killed 13, injured dozens in Burundi. On the global scene, we told you that US-Iran exploring the ceasefire deal tied to Strait of Hormuz reopening. That's it for tonight's Undaunted. Bringing into the news untold stories on behalf of Barrister Mbeseha and a team of technicians behind tonight's production is good night and God bless.